Families often think they have to keep fighting to show that they love their loved one. And maybe the real love, the real gift is being present in that moment. Talk about things, maybe ask for forgiveness, get closure. We often encourage family members to say, "It's okay to go, Mom. I've got this."
Welcome to the Heart to Heart Hospice podcast, where compassion meets expertise and care goes beyond the expected. Here, we open the door to a world of understanding, where hospice care isn't just for the last moments of life, but is a journey of comfort, support, and dignity. On each episode, we'll dive deep into topics that matter most to patients, families, and communities, from the essentials of hospice care to the incredibly powerful stories that inspire Heart to Heart's exceptional mission. Founded on a commitment to holistic, patient-centered care, Heart to Heart Hospice stands apart as a privately held company that prioritizes compassion over profits, ensuring every patient receives the personalized attention they deserve. So whether you're here to understand more about hospice care, to support a loved one, or to learn about the impactful work behind the scenes, Heart to Heart Hospice is here to support you. Welcome to the Heart to Heart Hospice podcast.
Hello, listeners. This is MJ Durkin, the host of the Heart to Heart Conversations, a Heart to Heart Hospice podcast. We are really glad that you have joined us for this episode of the podcast. We have a really interesting, great, and a very educational guest today. Her name is Rachel Bloom. She is the community liaison in the DFW areas for Heart to Heart Hospice. Rachel Bloom, how are you doing today?
I am doing so fabulous. Thank you for having me on.
We are really excited to talk with you and to get your expertise. So we understand that you travel all over the Dallas Metroplex, assisting all the Heart to Heart offices in expanding their outreach all over the place and just getting the word out about hospice. I mean, you are everywhere talking about Heart to Heart Hospice. Is that it?
Oh my gosh, I have the dream job. I am doing what I love. I get to talk to doctors, case managers, patients, families, anyone who will listen about the option of hospice. And I use that word because hospice isn't for everybody, but it's really good for people to have the education and understand all of the wonderful things that hospice can offer someone at the end of life.
Nice, nice. So talk to us about your journey into this work. Tell us where you started with your concern for people. And I understand you are what's known as a licensed clinical social worker. Did that designation, did that happen first, what you were studying? Tell me the sequence of events that leads you into the helping profession.
That's a great question, actually. I was born the daughter of two deaf parents, and I was always an advocate for them. I was trying to get every resource. I was their voice, and I found that, social work was definitely my passion and trying to help other people get resources as well. So I got my master's in social work. I'm now a licensed clinical social worker, worked in the nursing home for several years, and then dabbled in home health and other locations. And then finally, I found my home in hospice, and it just felt right. It felt so incredible to be able to be a part of someone's end of life journey and to help them, have closure with their family members, help them pass peacefully instead of being in a hospital connected to all sorts of tubes and other things and doing every possible test and surgery. So yeah, that's where my home has been. And I've been in the senior care industry for about 30 years. So I am staying here.
All right. Well, she's in like a python, like an anchor, like a python. I just want to clarify something for our audience because when you said that both of your parents were deaf, I want everybody to understand it's DEAF as in Frank. Okay. Because the magic of audio doesn't allow us. I thought for a second you said death parents. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. If you had death parents, then you went into grief and you went into, so I
I'm
want
glad you
everybody to
clarified
understand
that.
that your parents could not hear, correct?
Correct. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, well, you wouldn't have thought to clarify it, but when I heard it differently on the audio, I thought I better just check with our audience and never let it be said that MJ didn't, come up with a joke on a grief podcast whenever he could. So So you'll either really hate me or you'll really like me as the interviewer. But our real star of our show today is Rachel Bloom. So you're around the nursing home environment, what's also known as the skilled nursing facility environment, residential living center, assisted living facility, kind of the more modern terms for it. And you noticed the hospice people and the hospice workers that interacted with your patients there at the skilled nursing facility. And what occurred to you? What happened to your mind and your heart?
It was just a beautiful thing to watch some of the things that they did. I worked in a Jewish facility and they brought the rabbi in to sing prayers to the patients. And some of them who were just so contracted and struggling, you could actually see the physical release when, music is brought into their world, when someone just takes the time to read to them. When special time is taken to focus on the patient instead of, what are the lab values? What are we doing to make this patient better? How are we treating this patient? And so that just intrigued me. And I actually joined the hospice that was providing care in that nursing home and got to be a part of that team. And away I went. And now I'm seeing the difference that it can make, in terms of even just helping families make arrangements, whether it's funeral arrangements, talking about advanced directives. Nobody wants to talk about this. So hospice, often can make the switch in people's minds that, hey, I guess we do need to talk about this and focus on this. And that way, there's not a crisis when the patient passes. So I get to see all of that play out when someone comes on service.
On service, when the Medicare referral has been made and two physicians have signed off and given the Medicare referral, correct?
We just need a doctor's order from one physician. So if someone is interested on coming on service, we get the order from a physician. We get all the clinicals, which are just basically the medical info, including the history and physical, all of that. And then my nurse comes in to do an evaluation and decide whether or not that patient is appropriate according to Medicare guidelines. That way, we can give them the option of, are you ready to come on service? Are your thoughts in line with just comfort care as opposed to treating anything more aggressively?
Got it. Got it. So you bring up a very interesting point, and I think I want to explore this a little bit with you. The idea of the emotional bravery that it really takes for people to engage in discussions of, end of life journey, advanced directives. Okay. For our audience, I'm going to ask you to explain some of your technical terms or your
Sure.
acronyms. So explain an advanced directive, please.
Absolutely. There are several types. One is a medical power of attorney, where you can appoint somebody or several people to speak for you when you are no longer of sound mind. And it only goes into effect when you are not able to make your own decisions anymore. And that's so important because lots of people have many family members, many with different ideas about dying, and you want to appoint someone that is going to honor your wishes. The next piece of advanced directives is the out of hospital do not resuscitate. And that needs to be signed by either your medical power of attorney, the patient, a family member, and then signed by a doctor and two witnesses. And that document says that I want to be treated, but at a time when my heart stops, when I have passed peacefully, that I do not want to be resuscitated. That document often supports what people have outlined in their directive to physician,
Directive.
which is these are my wishes, but the out of hospital DNR is the legal manifestation of those wishes. So unless you have that document, if pass away and you don't have an out of hospital DNR, staff is required to resuscitate you, even though you're waiving your living will or your directive to physician. So it's good to know that you have an out of hospital DNR in place.
So, yes. So the DNR meaning do not resuscitate. So let's talk about, Rachel, your role as you're going around and you're speaking to, various groups, spreading the message of how all this works. And again, this is an educational podcast. So we want everyone from medical professionals to be listening. Quite frankly, a lot of the heart to heart hospice staff listen to the podcast. They love getting to know their colleagues and listen to these conversations. And this is good kind of best practices for them. And then the podcast goes to the community. It goes to end of life, journey patients, families that are going through it, might go through it, have been through it. Hate to tell you, death touches us all as much as we want to ignore it. And as one of the previous heart to heart hospice guests said, we don't do death very well in America, she said.
You're absolutely right. And I think so much of the time we don't even stop to talk about someone dying. We are
Mm,
so busy, fixing and doing. I mean, medical
mm,
advances have been amazing. People are living longer. Every time we have an illness or whatever, we're looking it up and finding out what we need to do. And we are so busy fixing that we don't take a moment to say, what would happen if we didn't do all of this? What would happen if we just focused on the quality of the days rather than the quantity of days. And I think that's so important because I'll give you an example. I was in the hospital yesterday visiting with this lovely couple. They've been married for 67 years. And the case manager says to me, we've tried lots of interventions and we're running out of things to do. And I thought, that's really interesting. Instead of, focusing on how to get this patient comfortable and home. And so when I talked to the husband, he was telling me all the things they've done. She's got the feeding tube in her nose and she's exhausted. I mean, she's not even alert during our conversation. And he's, busy spinning his wheels. And all of a sudden I said, what does your wife want? And he said, she's tired. She's told me several times she wants to go.
mm,
And we just sat in that for a while. And it really kind of sunk into him. And he realized that he's here spinning his wheels when she's tired and he
yeah.
hasn't been listening to her. So we are going to get her home and we are going to make whatever days she has left full of love and quality. It's just nice to be able to do that. And some patients want that, and some patients want to keep trying until the very end. So, I think it's important to focus on what that patient wants instead of, the other thing I realize is that families often think they have to keep fighting to show that they love their loved one. And maybe the real love, the real gift is being present in that moment and present in conversations and having talks about what was life like, reminiscing. I mean, one of my favorite things to do when I was an active social worker is life review. We would go through patients' lives and hear all of the travels and all of the wonderful stories. And I mean, people are just fascinating. And it is so beautiful for someone to take the time to look at their lives and also with their family members to talk about things, maybe ask for forgiveness, maybe, get closure. And that's something that's really special in hospice. We often encourage family members, if they can, if they're comfortable, to say to someone, it's okay to go, mom. It's okay. I've got this. I will take care of, dad
Yeah.
or whoever else
Yeah.
they're worried
Right.
about, and to really be reassuring to them so that they can go. So it's a beautiful thing that we do.
Yeah. It's a sacred thing, I believe, that you do. At Heart to Heart Hospice. You bring up so many good issues. I'm thinking of so many different things. The idea of the stories of people that just have lived a full life, let's just say that, 67 years, you got to believe they got married when they're 20, they're 87, right?
Yes. Yep.
They know they're not spring chickens, we might say in Texas. The thing that I've noticed about like my dad in his last year of life, from 57 to 58, he was doing the reminiscing because he was savoring all of the amazing experiences that he had, and he was constantly telling me stories. And, of course, over the years, some of them I had heard. But what I realized was he's reliving. This isn't for me to hear or write down or record, he got such pleasure from talking about the fun stuff that he did with his brothers when he's younger. He was the youngest of 8 children and he was the baby, So his brothers and sisters basically raised him while his old parents were like we're done with this stuff. So he got a lot of crazy stories of, 13-year-olds driving trucks and smoking cigarettes and drinking beer,
Oh my goodness.
but the savoring that goes on, so I love the end of life for you. Like, tell me your stories instead of, oh, here goes dad again, the 17th time about the time he jumped the train and did this. I mean, it really is beautiful to see people savoring their lives, isn't it?
Oh my gosh. Like you said, they get such joy out of it. And even if he's told you for the umpteenth time, I mean,
Mm.
the joy, that's a quality of a day instead of being so tired from, you know, going back and forth to the doctor or taking more tests. You are sitting there connecting and he's smiling and he's enjoying his day. What a special thing to treasure.
Several years ago, I wrote a book about my family. I've written a couple of books. The book that I wrote about them was mostly a love letter to my dad. In one of the chapters, I talked about, all the things he got to do and just kind of a poetic. He got to marry my mom and be with her for 37 years. And he got to, sail in his sunfish sailboat, which he forced us all to carry all over the beaches of everywhere because he'd never buy a trailer. So we always had to pack the boat in the station wagon and pull it out and mast it up. And he was forcing everybody to sail with him. And, forcing is a fun word. We loved it. And I wrote that all down. My dad got to do all this amazing stuff. And it was quite fun to write it out.
Oh, it's a treasure. I mean, there are
Yeah.
actually companies that do that where they give you questions to ask and you can record their voice actually telling the story, or you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
write stuff down. But those become family treasures. And I know that my kids have questions about, our ancestry and our family history. And it's just so nice to have that because once that patient passes, you don't have those stories anymore. So some of those little bits of technology are actually wonderful treasures to have.
So the topic that you brought up, which I love, is more days or better days. You know, is this going to be a quantitative experience? Certainly, in the United States, we're very big on winning.
Yeah.
And if you don't win the Super Bowl, you're a loser.
Yes, yes, we have to. And doctors, have that mentality. It's like, I'm an oncologist. I have to win this. And thank goodness. I mean, we have such wonderful, skilled doctors who are such advocates for their patients. If I can share a personal story about my dad, he had an incredible oncologist who tried everything. And we were, go in and getting lab work. And then we were having our visits with him and he was adjusting the treatments. But my dad finally said, I'm so tired. I don't want any more. He was done. I thought it was going to be an easy talk with the oncologist. I went in there and explained that we are just tired. My dad has, verbalized his own need to stop treatment. And oh my goodness, I felt like I was in a battle. He just could not understand why we would stop treatment, and he didn't want to give up. He wanted to win the Super Bowl. His heart was in the right place, but he wasn't listening. He wasn't listening to the patient. And finally, he gave in, and we got our order, and we got the clinicals that we needed to start hospice services. And it was the best thing I ever did. My dad, eventually, as expected, got weaker and weaker. And the weekend that he passed, we're Jewish. And so we had our Sabbath dinner. And I took the entire dining room table into his bedroom. And I took the whole meal into his bedroom. And I made my children sit around. I brought my husband in, my mom. We all sat there and we sang, our prayers, and my dad sang along. He looked at all of his family. It was so beautiful. And then he passed away that weekend.
Mm.
And I think if there was a beautiful death, that is a beautiful death. I don't have any regrets. I feel very peaceful. I still have that image. And, it's not everyone's choice, but it was beautiful for us. We got to just be in the moment.
Yeah.
And I guess when you come onto hospice, you sort of, like I said, change your mentality and you start having these conversations and treasuring those experiences and creating those moments.
Yeah. 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 Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that story. That's amazing. So, talk to us more about how Heart to Heart Hospice can help to make those days better, more fulfilling, more memorable, more joyful. First of all, I want to talk about the emotional support of just like a social worker talking to a patient and the family. But I want to talk about the patient for a minute. Okay. And we have aides that can, like sit with someone and listen to the stories, play a game of cards with someone, talk, right? Play music for them. I learned from Dr. Bond you have music therapy, which I didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
And pet therapy, I almost started bawling when I heard that one. Tell us about some of those things that hospice can do that I would have never, ever thought of.
So we have an entire team. We have a nurse. We have, like you said, the nurse aide. We have a chaplain who can pray and be where the patient is spiritually. We have a social worker who helps with some of the advanced directives and can also help patients talk through some of their feelings about, dying. But some of the special pieces that sets Heart to Heart apart is our amazing volunteer program. We have so many volunteers. We can match them appropriately. Maybe we have a veteran, and so we can match a veteran with a veteran. We can match someone who may have a particular hobby in common. And then, like you said, music therapy. We just here in the Dallas area have our full-time music therapist seeing patients now. And I've talked about the beauty of music. In fact, there are patients with dementia who not said a word in years, and all of a sudden you can play a song, you play Frank Sinatra, and they are, singing every word. It is just incredible, the power of music. I just love that. And then we have pet therapy, and that's just so special. Again, really touching patients who may have dementia. The dog doesn't care, how much they know, but just to be able to touch that pet and receive love in that way is so special. And then we also have massage therapy directed towards, comfort, relaxation, pain. We will set up regular massage therapy for our patients. So lots of special things that set us apart. I'm really proud to work for Heart to Heart. Sounds like you want to sign up.
This, you know, this podcast kills me. It kills me. Oh my gosh. I'm going to have to toughen up. So, look, so many things you just gave me there. First of all, I'm going to tell an irreverent joke because I sense you like a good joke. So, my irreverent joke is I wonder, let's say, at 110, if on my last days, maybe they'll play Bohemian Rhapsody for me and I'll sing live. I'll sing my favorite band out and sing in my Freddie Mercury falsetto
You sing loud
voice.
and proud, loud and proud. I am telling you. Yes,
Mama.
I love it. I have the image already.
Oh man, so do I. Holy smokes. So I hope that doesn't offend anybody, but I think it's pretty good. I mean, the massage, like one of the things I was doing for my dad at his the last couple of weeks was I'm not a professional massage therapist, but I do have a table and I've taken a couple of classes, and so I was massaging him, and trying to give him some relief, and he loved it. And then he had it from his son, his oldest son, who loved him, And the thing that would happen to me is because he had cancer and emphysema,
Yeah.
and as I was massaging him, I could really see how his body was, coming to the end, and I knew that things were within, 2 or 3 months. But it was such an amazing gift, and I mean, not many families could provide that gift to have a person who did massage, but to have those services, the music, a pet. I mean, holy smokes, like what a huge difference you could make in someone's end of days.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, going back to that massage for a minute, you were talking about, touching your dad and the power
Mm,
of just feeling touch. And that is
mm.
so comforting. Yeah, we do make a difference at the end of life, and it can be really beautiful. So proud to be a part of someone's end of life journey.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. So good. So good. And then talk to us about humor. Does humor come in to help these patients?
Absolutely. And, you have to be careful. First of all, among hospice staff, sometimes it gets so heavy. I mean, we deal with such heartbreak that we have to have our own humor to cope with some of this. And, certainly with patients, the gift of humor is just so important because you don't have to be dying every day. You can take a moment to enjoy a good laugh. Oftentimes, I'm joking about their spouse as a caregiver. And I'm really glad you brought that up because it feels good to laugh. I mean, there's a physical release when you laugh as well.
Oh, there's so much. I mean, there's so much healing and humor. My dad and I, we used to joke so much. He's an Irish Catholic, recovered alcoholic, right? He was full of mirth and he started writing this. He said he called it his book. He was writing it on these big index cards. He would write like he called them his chapters, and one was, "How will the neighbors know when I'm gone?"
Oh my gosh.
And he wrote, "There's a lot of cars in the driveway." And it was like in the middle of the winter. It was a rough winter that year. It was like February, March. And he wrote, "There's a coyote howling on the front yard."
Oh my God.
He got such a kick out of that,
It looks like your dad used humor to cope as well. I mean, we all need a bit of humor. I think that's how we connect. Sometimes when we laugh together, that's just a great feeling and a great moment to share with someone.
Yeah, yeah. One of my mother's relatives, Uncle Bill, sent him these cassette tapes of like Irish jokes about death. And he'd put it in the stereo and he'd roar. He had this, that laugh like,
Oh my gosh.
and he would just laugh over and over again about, Paddy the Irishman. They tried to bury him. I don't know what the jokes were, but turns out he was just drunk, that kind of thing. And that was very, very helpful to him. I always say his last year was his greatest year.
Yeah. Yeah. When he's looking at his life, he's, connecting with his family. He's
Yeah.
saying goodbye. And
Yeah.
that is such a gift to have that time. I mean,
Mm,
sometimes when patients die so quickly, unexpectedly, that is traumatic in itself, but you just don't get any closure. You don't get to kind of say goodbye to somebody.
mm,
And so this kind of slow goodbye, some of these changes that we see as patients are declining, it's hard for families to see, but it also kind of helps them start
mm.
grieving
Yeah.
and, that anticipatory grief that we talk about and getting ready for that. So, what a gift that is to be able to have that connection and have that closure.
Yeah. It's very powerful what you say there. I absolutely love your massively quotable Rachel Bloom. You don't have to be dying every day. Holy smokes. I want to send you a plaque, with your Rachel Bloom, LCSW, Heart to Heart Hospice.
I love it. Yes, because you want to make the most of those days that you have. Families are like, "Can I go outside now that I'm on hospice?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"You do whatever you are strong enough to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is your time to get every bit you can out of life. Make each day matter."
Mm, mm. Yeah. I remember pulling into the skilled nursing facility, not to use the old fashioned term of a nursing home, when my mom was there and she'd had a stroke and it was springtime. It was right around Easter time. And the forsythia bushes had just bloomed a brilliant yellow, in Connecticut. As I pulled up there to go visit her, I realized, this will be her last spring.
Mm.
Like it really hit me hard. It made me really appreciate spring, a million times more. And then I made sure I was getting her outside as much as possible. It wasn't too easy to do back then. But yeah, like, wow, this will be the last time she'll ever see, forsythia bushes bloom in spring. And she always loved them.
Yeah, it's amazing the things that you can think about in terms of those little moments because you start treasuring each time. You don't know when
Right.
that's going to be the last time that you're with your mom and seeing those flowers, so treasuring smell, treasuring
Mm.
every moment. That's really what matters, I think.
Well, how about treasuring food? Both of my parents, one of the things that they still love to do when they still love to do it, and I knew the end was coming for both of them when they started telling me food didn't taste good, they weren't interested in food, then I knew that was that sign. But I used to stop at a place and bring my mother sausage and peppers. You would have thought that I had brought her, buckets of gold bullion and a tiara and Liberace to play in her living room. Or better yet, Tom Jones. Tom Jones came to sing in her living room. I brought her sausage and peppers. It was like the biggest thing of her life that I would bring her sausage and peppers.
Oh, yeah, just enjoying every little thing. It's interesting though, as one is dying,
Yeah.
the body stops,
Mm.
wanting food.
Desire. It
Yep,
stops desiring. Yeah.
yep. And as you get to the very, very end, patients stop eating altogether.
Yeah.
And it is so hard for families to not want to
Mm.
push. And we have to, as hospice staff, educate them. Pushing food can actually cause aspiration. It can actually be very harmful to
Mm.
the patient, but the body kind of has its own natural process for shutting down. Very interesting.
Well, it's interesting also, like you said, which is let's see if we can figure out what the patient actually wants as
Yeah.
opposed to us in our, wanting to keep them around, not wanting to face death. My dad, he'd call me on my cell phone. He'd be like, Can you get me a chocolate milkshake at JK's? Can you get me one of those chocolate milkshakes and maybe get me one of those hot wieners with that extra? And I'd be like, Dad, it's on the way, It's like an emergency vehicle to bring him his chocolate shake and his hot dog.
And it made him so happy, I'm sure.
I'm telling you, like I said, I don't know what my father would have liked. He bought him a huge sailboat. He would have been like, nope, I'll take the chocolate shake right now.
Well, it's crazy what, you realize is gives you pleasure and gives you
Right.
joy.
Yeah.
And it isn't the big trip and the this and the that. Maybe it is just a moment sitting with your son,
Yeah.
having
Yeah.
a shake.
Yeah. And then telling some story about, did I ever tell you about this? And me saying, yeah, I've heard the story about you jumping on the rail car 1,000 times. Yes. Please tell it again, Dad.
Yeah. And he's probably smiling each and every time he says that.
And
So,
every time he talked about jumping in that, abandoned rail car and taking a drive, an hour and a half away, and then my mother having to come and pick him up.
oh my gosh. He sounds like such a character.
Oh yeah, he was a character. So I love this conversation. Rachel, let's give some advice to the families. Um, Talk to them about some things that you could maybe, help them to avoid things like forcing food or pushing their wishes. How can they better deal with their fears of, I really don't want this person to go. I don't want this part of my life to end.
Well, I think that a big focus has to be on talking to the patient,
Mhm.
asking their loved one, what do you want? And allowing them to share because we have so much in our mind of how things should go and really just listening to what the patient wants.
Yeah, it's so important. I remember at the very end, my mother said, I said, is he ready to go in and to die? And she says, I can't have the conversation with him. Yeah, I can't do it.
Yeah.
You have to talk to him, which I did. And it was kind of like walking the plank, to walk in the living room and say, hey, are you ready to go? It took incredible emotional bravery to look him in the eyes and say, what's the deal? And like you've described a number of times, he said, I am in so much pain and I am so tired of this. I really want to leave, Michael.
you know, for you to be as brave to ask that question and for him to be able to release some of those
Mm,
feelings, because oftentimes they want to stay around for us.
right.
It's almost like such miscommunication because we're like, I want to show you I love you by doing everything. I'm going to do everything because you need to know that I love you and I care about you. And
Yeah.
then the patient is thinking, I am so tired and I want to go, but I am going to fight, fight, fight because I know that's what you want me to do. And we are missing
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what a beautiful thing you did to allow your
Yeah.
dad to share and to kind of release his feelings. And he told you what he needed. What a wonderful thing you could do to honor those wishes.
Yeah. It's a journey, this end of life thing. Holy smokes. I'm going to tell everybody you'll all grow from it. If you,
Absolutely. You
if you
learn a lot
want,
about life.
you'll learn a lot about life. You'll learn a lot about yourself if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got to be open. You've got to be open to having those conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to be willing to lean into it and be a little uncomfortable. And all I have is great memories of my father's last year, the angels from hospice that did so many genius things for us. I couldn't even begin to tell you. What a great conversation, Rachel Bloom. Thank you so much. We often like to ask our guests to tell us something personal about themselves. family? You got a goldfish named Moby Dick? Anything you want to tell us about personal life? Go ahead.
I have a wonderfully supportive husband. His name is Earl, and he deals with me running, out on our anniversary on evenings and weekends. I mean, whenever a patient or family wants to talk, I'm there. So I'm very grateful to him. We are a blended family. So together we have five boys. And I am so happy and delighted that I finally have myself a daughter-in-law and another one on the way. So that's lovely. And I do triathlons. I just enjoy exercising and the racing. And it's also a great outlet for me because, like I said, what we do is so heavy. And sometimes we have to have a way to kind of deal with it ourselves. So that is my idea of taking care of myself.
I like it. I like it. Well, you remind me of, since I'm on all the Durkin stories today, and I'm not ready to pass, so I'm just reminiscing because I love my family. I had my brother live with me for about 3 or 4 months when he was going through a divorce, and I was going through a divorce. And he moved to this little cottage, like literally up the street from me out on the main road. And I used to do my run all the time, past the cottage, and he could see me running. He'd be out with a cup of coffee and he'd yell at me, "Stop running from your problems, Michael."
Oh my gosh, that is too funny. That's great. That's great.
"Stop running from your problems." And I was like, "Oh, Alan, you're insane." Yeah, running, it's a great release. There's so many benefits of endorphins and the runner's high and releasing, like, holy smokes, movement is a great thing. There's the message to the heart folks. Get some movement, get your steps in.
Absolutely.
Shake it out, do some dance, get that heart rate up. I listened to a doctor today on the internet talking about, do that sprinting. You want to get lean, do some sprinting, get into that high heart rate, right? And do that fit fast cycle. Rachel Bloom, a real genuine pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
To all of our listeners, let us say that we hope that you are enjoying Heart to Heart Conversations, a Heart to Heart Hospice podcast, and that you're enjoying these conversations. Can I make a recommendation? Please, there's 3 little buttons that you can hit and that you can share the podcast with other medical professionals, clergy, people that are in this community of giving comfort to people at the end of life journey. You can send it to families that you know that are experiencing it. You can send it to friends. Heart to Heart Hospice team members should send it to each other because we still have a lot of team members that don't know about the Heart to Heart podcast. So let's get it out to everybody. And also, if you are a listener and or a staff member of Heart to Heart, please go and write us a review. Reviews help us to get up in the podcast services so more people will find the episodes that we post. And wouldn't you agree that this kind of education is valuable and helpful and will help people to face very serious, very tough, and very emotional issues? So we're really glad that you're here. Please write a review and please give us a 5-star rating and also send the podcast to as many people as you can. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of Heart to Heart Conversations, a Heart to Heart Hospice podcast.
That concludes this episode of the Heart to Heart Hospice podcast. Be sure to check back regularly for new episodes and get connected to our guiding principles and our commitment to patient-centered care. We'll see you on the next episode.